everyone! Today I'll be sharing with you how I increased my milk supply. Now when I started pumping, I was only producing about 2 to 3 ounces maximum from both sides each session, and I was really struggling to keep up with my baby who was taking about 3 ounces almost every 2 hours. I never really went to any birthing class or lactation classes before I gave birth, so when my baby came out, I literally have no idea what I was doing. I find that everything was so new and foreign to me, and it took me a lot of research, a lot of sleepless nights, and a lot of trial and errors for me to figure out what works for me and what really helps me with my supply. Over time, I was able to build up my supply, and at my highest, I was producing at least 50 ounces per day. And I'm happy to say that I was able to donate to hospitals, to babies in need, and some family friends. I understand the struggle to be able to be successful in your pumping journey, and it is already overwhelming to take care of a kid, let alone to produce enough milk for them. So it is my hope that I could help you be successful in your pumping journey as well, and the things that work for me may also work for you. So if you're interested in knowing more of my tips and tricks to increase your milk supply, then sit back, relax, and let's begin. First and foremost is to eat up. This is not really a time for you to crash diet or limit your calorie intake per day, because you have to understand that your body is working double time to produce milk for your baby. It's literally like around the clock work for our bodies, because you're gonna feel hungrier than usual, and that's completely normal. I never really deprived myself in eating when I was breastfeeding and pumping, because it's all about listening to your body. When you feel hungry, then go ahead and give yourself a snack. But of course, it's all about eating clean, because remember, what you eat is what your baby will also eat. Secondly is remember to hydrate. I have this unquenchable thirst before and after my pumping session. I would feel thirsty the whole day and I would keep on drinking water. And honestly, the best gift that I've ever received after I gave birth was actually a big jug that my sister gave me. I never knew that I would use it that much for such a long time. A lot of people swear by drinking Gatorade and Body Armor. Personally, I have tried Gatorade a few days, but I eventually stopped because I want to veer away from really sweet and sugary drinks. Instead, I actually went for coconut water, which helps kind of satiate my cravings for sweet drinks. And I also drink almond milk because I was discouraged from drinking dairy when I was pumping. So almond milk is a great plant-based alternative for dairies if you're craving for milk. And at the same time, people actually say that it makes your milk creamier and it also boosts your milk supply. Next would be oats. Now, if you're searching for any recipes or a list of foods that will increase your milk supply, most probably oats is going to be in that list. I have been taking oats every single day for breakfast, and it has helped my milk supply a lot. Whole grains is not only good for your body, but also for your milk supply. And it's such an easy breakfast prep in the morning. It will save you a lot of time. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. And to my oats, I actually add a tablespoon of flaxseed meal every single day. Flax seeds are rich in fatty acids, and it actually helps in your supply as well. It adds this really subtle nuttiness to your oatmeal, which is not super overpowering as to change the taste of the oatmeal. So I didn't really mind adding this to my oats every single morning. If you're not used to the taste of oats or flax seeds, you can always make yourself or buy lactation treats, because most often than not, these two are going to be present in lactation goodies. There are a lot of great recipes online, and you just have to try which one works for you. Last and definitely not the least are milk boosting supplements. Now, this is a supplement that I take on top of my usual calcium and vitamin C, which is good for your body postpartum. But the only milk boosting supplement that I actually take is Moringa oleifera capsules. Moringa oleifera is such a popular milk boosting supplement in Asia, and there's an abundant supply here. This has been passed on from generation to generation, and it has been tried and tested that Moringa oleifera increases your milk supply. And I remember that the first meal that I actually have after I gave birth was a soup my mom made, and it's full of moringa oleifera. People swear by this, and I personally swear by this. Now, the reason why I only take moringa oleifera is, number one, I find that a lot of supplements can be quite costly if you add it all up. I mean, there are a lot of available supplements in the market, but for me to actually try each of those can actually add up the bills per month. I'm already feeling guilty because I've bought myself a pump and a deep chest freezer. So I just opted for one supplement that works. The second reason is because people say that it's not necessarily because you take more supplements that you're gonna produce more milk. In fact, people say that taking a lot of supplements may or may not actually cancel out each other. Like, I've read some people commenting that when they take moringa oleifera together with fenugreek, sometimes both of this can cancel out the effect of each other. My sister personally tried fenugreek and it did not work for her. So when I started my pumping journey, I opted for moringa oleifera because it works. It really works for me. And in addition to that, it contains a lot of nutrients and it's really good for your body. It's a great herbal food supplement, whether you're breastfeeding or not. I cannot emphasize this enough, but if you really want to build up your supply, you must stick to a pumping routine religiously. 24/7, round the clock, there's no vacation or whatsoever. Breast milk production is all about supply and demand. So the more you drain out yourself, the more your body will actually produce more milk because it's gonna think that, hey, my baby needs more milk, therefore I need to produce more. It may seem that when you start pumping, you will only produce such a small amount. And honestly speaking, it may be discouraging. When I started, I was only producing like drops at first, but eventually you will get there. You really have to stick to every 3 hours for the first 12 weeks because people say that this is the period of time where you establish your milk supply. The more frequent you pump, the more you can sustain and increase your milk production in the long run. I sometimes get asked, how do you increase your milk supply? And I ask them back, how often do you pump per day? And I sometimes get answers like only thrice a day because for each pumping session, they were only getting a few drops, so it's not really worth it to pump more than thrice a day. But that's a big no-no because you're replacing each breastfeeding session with a pumping session. So you should be pumping at least every 3 hours because that's how a newborn baby is eating throughout the day. Pumping is like breastfeeding. You must remember to mimic your baby's feeding pattern and pump throughout the day. I used to think that pumping is all about hooking your flange inside your pumping bra and then leaving the pump to do its way throughout the whole session. But I later on realized when I went to my lactation consultant that it actually helps to massage before, during, and after your pump. Now, before pumping, you should be able to trigger and kind of stimulate your milk for that pumping session. How she described it is gently running your finger from the milk ducts down to the areola part, doing some light circular massages around the area, and giving it a light shake just before you start pumping. That way you can trigger the milk letdown much easier and kind of anticipate your body from the pumping session. I understand how difficult it is to massage, especially when you have that flange and the pumping bra on you. But what really helped me during my pumping session is doing light compressions from each side during my pump. Draining efficiently in each pumping session not only helps you with your milk supply, but at the same time helps you avoid having clogs. For me, clogs usually happen when I'm not able to drain out completely in this pumping session, and eventually over time, the milk residue will become a clog and it's so painful, it's gonna decrease your milk supply, and it's just so difficult to kind of declog it. Now, after pumping, don't forget to hand express. There are a lot of great tutorials online on how to hand express, like the Marmette technique. And it's just gonna help you get all of those little leftover milk to just come out. It's gonna not only increase your milk supply, but at the same time get you a few more drops or even an ounce after you pump. Next is the dreaded power pump. I personally dread power pumping because it's gonna take a whole hour just to finish this session. But I find it effective, especially if you want to kind of boost your milk supply. Doing power pumping for at least maybe around 2 weeks helped me with my supply. It helped me increase my supply. It's tiring, but at the same time, it is kind of worth it to do it. I would say that power pumping isn't necessarily part of my everyday pumping routine, but I would do power pumping sessions, especially if I felt that my milk supply has dipped over that week because maybe I missed a lot of pumping session, or maybe I most probably am pretty busy, so I'm late on my every pumping session. This is a great pick-me-up. It's time consuming, but it's gonna be worth it. It takes 20 minutes to initially pump, 10 minutes rest, 10 minutes pump, 10 minutes rest, and 10 minutes pump again. This actually mimics your baby cluster feeding. When you're breastfeeding, it's very normal for a baby to cluster feed, especially when they're going through a growth spurt. So this actually helps your body kind of do the same with your pump. Remember, as I said, the more you drain out your body, the more your body will produce more milk. It's not about how long your pumping session is, but it's how frequent you pump and you empty yourself. If you're thinking that you have done everything to increase your milk supply and yet it is still low, then it might be time to check your pump. This is applicable most especially for moms who are using secondhand pumps or the pumps that you have used from the previous pregnancy. Go ahead and check on the replaceable silicone pumps. These are the parts that you will most probably change more than once because it will eventually wear and tear, and it's gonna directly affect the suction of the pump. Most probably, if you're wondering why the suction strength isn't the same as before, even though there are no apparent tears in the silicone parts, you will eventually have to change the duckbills or the silicone in the adapters eventually, because this one is really prone to deterioration over time that you're using your pump. Next is don't forget to check your flange size. I personally want to emphasize this one because I had a difficult time finding the right size for me. I remember when I started pumping and I was researching online of how to fit yourself properly in the right size flange. I've had a feeling that I had the wrong flange size. You see, when I bought my pump, it came along with the standard 24 millimeters. So I decided to go back to the store and have them help me fit my flange size. And I kept on telling to the girl that maybe I feel like I have a smaller flange size. And she told me that, ma'am, I have fitted a lot of people and I'm confident enough to say that you're 24 millimeters. So I went home and continued on with the 24 millimeter flange size. But over time, I developed a lot of clogs. I couldn't drain myself out. It was just such a painful journey that I told myself it is impossible for people to exclusively pump, because I would end up with such a bad clog every single day that my husband knew I was so miserable already. I was in pain and I just didn't understand how people could do this. At the 6 months mark, I found someone who helped me fit the proper flange sizing for me. And she was like, girl, you are using the wrong flange size. You are using a size bigger and it's normal for you to get clogs because you're not gonna drain out very well with this size. And at that moment, I kind of realized that my gut feeling at the very beginning was correct. I knew I have a smaller flange size and I quickly changed the flange and it just changed the whole pumping journey for me. After I changed my flange, I not only got more milk, but I have no clogs whatsoever. And here I am. I have pumped 2 years for my kid. I'm happy to say that I got no clogs after choosing the right flange size. I had the impression back then that the stronger the suction strength you use during your pump, the more milk you will produce. But boy was I wrong. I ended up being sore for a lot of days, and even putting on my shirt or my bra was so painful already. Everyone responds very differently to the suction strength of the pump. I remember I ended up being sore because I asked someone what their suction strength is and I applied that to myself. But eventually I learned that I am more sensitive and I tend to use the lower suction strength, and that drains me out quite well as well. It's all about finding the right combination of the stimulation mode and the expression mode that you will use, that your body best responds to. There are actually people who simply use the stimulation mode the whole pumping session, and their body responds very well to that, and they empty out much quicker. For me, it's all about switching from the stimulation to the expression mode and back and forth throughout the entire session. So see what really works for you. Mental health is so important for you to be successful in this pumping journey, and it's not all about being physically fit, but being mentally sane as well. I personally wouldn't make it this far if not for the support that I got, not only from my family, from my husband, but to the other people as well who encouraged me throughout the journey. First, it's the lactation masseuse and the lactation consultant. These are actually very different people. The lactation consultant is there to comment about how you pump or how you breastfeed, so you can breastfeed and pump in front of them. And they're gonna tell you if your baby is latching correctly or if you're pumping correctly. And for the lactation masseuse, these are the people that are actually more hands-on. So this has helped me a lot because I mentioned that when I have really bad clogs, I just call my lactation masseuse and she comes over and then kind of massages the clog away. This has helped me a lot. This has saved me a lot of painful nights and days of having clogs. I mean, let's face it, there are some clogs that simply won't be removed by hot compress alone or anything I do at all. Lactation masseuses are very gentle and they're very knowledgeable on how to remove the clogs. Next is a support group online. There are a lot of great groups online, and you can simply choose which group to join, which group really speaks to you, that will help you, kind of encourage you. This was such an eye-opener for me because I knew I was struggling really bad. But in joining the support groups, you actually realize that, hey, you're not the only person struggling with this. There are a lot of moms who struggle the same way as you do, and you're so normal. There's nothing wrong with you. And when people say that pumping and breastfeeding comes so naturally, at the back of my mind, I knew that it was not for me. You realize that there are a lot of moms struggling like you, and that's okay. You're there to encourage each other, kind of help each other, troubleshoot the things that you're going through, and help you stay positive throughout your pumping journey. And of course, relax and don't count the drops. I remember when I was pumping before and I was so stressed out in how much output I'm going to make, I kept on staring down to the bottles of my pump, looking at literally every drop that it's making, counting the mark, like, okay, I'm at the 5 minutes mark and I'm only producing like less than an ounce. I was so stressed out and I was so mentally drained. I would get really disappointed in myself for producing less than the previous pumping session. I was tired, I was stressed out, and I was frustrated. I've read online that there was a mom who actually recommended to you to put your baby's sock on top of the bottle just for you not to see how much you're producing. Just relax, just let your body work it through, and just don't count each and every drop that you make. Remember, our mind greatly influences our body, and the more negatively we think of ourselves, the less milk we will be able to produce. Last is be grateful to your body. Each breastfeeding or pumping session doesn't have to be a dreaded task of motherhood. It's something that we must look forward to because it's a time for us to connect and bond with our children. We want the best for our baby, but at the same time, we must not forget what's good for us as well. Whatever you make is something that you should be really thankful of. Being a good mom is not measured by how much milk you're able to produce, but it's the time and the love that you give to your family as well. I hope that moms would find the things that I shared useful, and of course, good luck on your breastfeeding journey. Comment down below if you have some extra tips you would like to share to increase your milk supply. And of course, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!